Right, members, could we start taking our seats again? Try and get things underway. Okay, members, moving on there now. Item 12, Kiva's Law, Notice of Motion. Philip is going to take this one for us.
So members, you'll be aware that that a notice of motion in relation to Kiva's Law appeared on the agenda for the September council meeting. And the motion as it appeared on the agenda is reproduced there at paragraph 2.1 of the report. It's passed unanimously by the members. Subsequently, it was discovered that the original motion as had been submitted was significantly longer than that which appeared on the agenda. Essentially, members, as we were working at fitting the motion on the screen in a manner that would be legible, we looked at various different options in relation to that, and ultimately one of those options was then reproduced in the agenda rather than the motion in full. It wasn't picked up by myself at the time in relation to the agenda, wasn't picked up by the proposer of the motion. So it was only afterwards, as we were looking at the actions that flowed from it, that we noted the issue. Remember, the remainder of the motion is set out at paragraph 3.5 of the report, and you'll see that it comprises a further 8 paragraphs with a further 3 sub-paragraphs containing various actions which relate to writing and requests and so on. So members, you're asked to consider the additional actions set out in paragraph 3.5 and confirm if you wish and are content that all of those be progressed.
Okay, members content? Okay, so item 13, is our notices of motion. We have 6 notices of motion, members, so if you don't want to be back here tomorrow, I would ask you to be as brief as possible with your comments. So the first motion is Alderman Montgomery to move.
Thank you, Mayor.
Second. Alderman Guy, seconded.
Thank you, and thank you to Alderman Guy for seconding it. I brought this motion today due to the schools in Northern Ireland experienced serious disruption during the recent storm, Storm Amy. This storm was issued as an Amber Alert, and due to this, the education issued a closure message for all schools for the safety of pupils and their staff. A message was sent to schools via email from EA instructing all schools to close by 12 noon and was sent after the school day began. As the school day had started, and we all know there can be a delay in emails, it was not received for some up to an hour or more after it had been issued. Principals and staff were placed under tremendous pressure to ensure getting messages and phone calls to parents and caregivers to collect their child. Many parents face the difficulty of arranging to collect their child from school or arranging transport for students who normally get the school bus. Buses were unable to collect children from school due to the short notice. Parents also had to leave work unexpectedly. Being a mum of 3 and a childminder, I saw the pressure on schools firsthand and the stress of parents getting from one school to another. The situation has highlighted the flaws in relying solely on email communications for emergency notifications and reinforces the need of a faster, more reliable alert system in place. Allowing schools to have the power to also take timely decisions when extreme weather threats would ensure the safety of pupil and staff, as this could have been called by schools a lot sooner than it was. Safety is always priority in any situation, and supporting this motion today would ensure the safety of our children as well as the staff during weather warnings. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Montgomery. Any other speaker? Sorry, Councillor Clark.
We actually agree with everything here that Alderman Montgomery's motion contains. From my recollection of that day, that storm, the scenes that followed the EA announcement were nothing short of chaotic across the whole city and district with the traffic and stuff. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like this, because we have the technology nowadays to predict and track all types of storms and dangerous weather systems. We all know the severity of global warming and that there's every possibility that these storms are going to become more frequent and every bit as ferocious. notice. So given this predicament, I think it's incumbent upon the EA that they'll need to develop robust messaging systems for extreme weather system alerts. And as Alderman Montgomery mentioned, we need to allow schools the autonomy to make timely decisions based on these facts and to help alleviate the stress placed on childcare providers and parents to make alternative plans in these emergency situations. Gora Mailga.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Mooney.
You, Chair, and thank you to Alderman Montgomery. I think what Alderman Montgomery said, it just sums up the practicality and the common sense of the motion. I think everybody who has been parents in the past and who are parents now currently will know of those experiences when you get the late notice that the school is closed. You have to get kids looked after because you have to go to work and all the practicalities that involve from that there. So we'll be supporting this motion, Chair, because inherently it's commonsensical. Thank you, Alderman Montgomery. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Mooney. Alderman McMorris.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in. We do agree with the motion. However, I just want to state that on the 7th of October, the Minister actually issued correspondence confirming that following Storm Amy, he had asked for a full review of it in order to evaluate the decision making and the interaction with Local Impact Assessment Committee in accordance with the framework for civil contingencies, Northern Ireland. And he also looked at the timelines of communication with school leaders and parents and outcomes of school closures. He has tasked his department to do that, and they were given 2 weeks to do it. And the results of that should be back with him on the 20th of October. So I believe that will be coming to the next committee meeting in Stormont with the Education Minister. So yeah, I just wanted to put that across. And also in regards to the second part of the motion, I do believe that the schools have the freedom at the moment in order to make closure decisions. We've seen recently with the Drumahoe School how something happened in the community, and their reaction was to automatically close the school in order until they found out what was exactly happening within the community. So I do believe they have the freedom. Most schools use a SIM system or email or text message or some form of thing, but I think that sits in the school of what their preferred method of communication with the parents is. And I know that it sometimes probably doesn't suit everybody at the one time, like you might not be able to pick up the email. But I certainly know that they have the freedoms to do that. And each school would have their own risk assessments and review their own processes. So hopefully that's something that they will all review. And when we get the response from the Education Minister, we'll see how far his recommendations go in order to improve this current system that we have. But thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Any other indicated speakers on this motion? No members. I'm sensing unanimity on this motion, so are we content to support? It's been proposed and seconded. Yeah, okay, so thank you, Alderman Montgomery. When I wish to sum up.
I just want to say thanks very much for everybody for their comments and supporting this motion today. Thank you.
Okay, so our second item of motion is Councillor Boggs to move.
The motion is read, Mayor.
A seconder, Councillor Devine.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks to Councillor Devine for seconding the motion. And I will be brief, and I bring the motion today to renew the call for a dedicated and purpose-built youth facility in Strabane. It's simply not good enough that there's no purpose-built EA youth facility in Strabane, albeit there is good work ongoing with youth workers and community and voluntary services as well. But truthfully, it is successive DUP education ministers that have failed to progress the project, and it needs to stop. We need to see progress. And even in 2021, when a business case was submitted, the project was branded as a priority, yet we have yet to see any progress. So the motion is clear in what it's asking for, and I hope that members can support the motion in front of us. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Boggs. Alderman Kerrigan.
Thank you, Mayor, for allowing me in. Apologies. I'm getting that biscuit done there. I do thank Councillor Boggs for bringing the motion forward. Again, calling for the facility within Staban, as Councillor Gallagher called for at a time in regards to Melvin, put a motion forward and called for it in the town. And I do take on board your comments in regards to their the previous reports in regards to it and the need for it in the town. So as I say, I concur with the work you've stated there in regards in your motion in regards to good work that's carried out by youth workers and the community groups. And again, I'm sure we're all familiar that with the groups within their own DEAs in their own areas there, the work that's undertaken and the lengths that those individuals go to, all involuntary in their own time. I do note there you are calling upon the Education Minister to provide the funding for it, and we do state there, we see even earlier your colleague there, Councillor Hutton, referenced the St Eugene's in the Moor and the need there for a new school there and the funding there, and there are massive constraints in regard to the education budget and in regards to that. And I know Ardagh Garvin's need a new school. I know there's many areas, we can all look at our own areas there in regards to schools that need considerable amount of work, which will put a substantial budget, capital budget, or capital expense in regard to the Education Minister's capital budget. So I do see that issue. Just as I say, I do have a slight concern, but as I say, Councillor Boggs will be on top of this issue, more so being Staban Town Councillor, in regards to the community facility and where it might be located. But I suppose this is the case of finding a suitable location in Staban Town, because I am mindful that there's a very small PUL community within the town, but there's a larger PUL community in the rural areas around it, that it would be an available facility for all within the area, the town and the wider rural area. But in that regard, Mayor, we're content to support the motion brought forward by Councillor Boggs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alderman Kerrigan. The next indicated speaker is Councillor Gallagher.
Thank you, Chair, for letting us in. Firstly, I'll declare an interest in the sense that I've worked in Staban Town with young people for over 20 years, Fowden Street, Springle Park, Checknafolcha and Strabane. And when I looked at this motion, I have to say, I think it's, and I'll revert back to the proposer's words himself, I think it's simply not good enough. I don't see any action that's curtailed in this motion. The proposal comes from a party who's been in government for 26 years, knows the lack of investment, and I think they simply put it at the door of a single minister is simply not good enough. That if we really want a purpose-built facility for our youth in Strabane Town, then we need to be seeing government prioritising this. We have, and this council has, what's called a local growth partnership, and they should be coming forward with identified sites. We've seen recently a school getting closed down that could have been potentially an ideal site. Education Authority did nothing but let it run on the rack and ruin, and then it ended up getting burnt, and it's burnt to the ground and useless to anybody. So I think that if we really, really want to address the issues, then I don't think we should be finger pointing at any one element, that we need to go as a collective from government, from the community sector, from the statutory bodies. Like we have seen, and I've seen resources getting cut and cut and cut. And then we see, and no further away, it was on the radio this morning, how we've seen antisocial behaviour, groups of young people running around Strabane, getting called mobs. They're not mobs. They are young people who are finding themselves at a loss.
Time, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair, and at a loss. And if we really want to address it, then government needs to address it from top down. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gallagher. And Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Boggs for the motion in front of us. The SDLP are happy to support the proposal. as is. I have spoken to our MLA, Daniel McCrossan, in regards to this motion, and he has previously met with EA and the Department for Education around this to try and get them to look at some type of a location, first and foremost, for this, but to try and find the budget to push this project on. The fact that a town the size of Strabane has no purpose-built youth centre is shocking in this day and age. And we are here being asked to support or not the proposed motion in front of us. It's not for councillors to work out whether the department should spend their money fixing up St Eugene's Primary School on Francis Street or building a youth centre in Strabane. They should do both. And it's up to the Minister to come up with the ideas and the solutions to do that. And the SDLP support that and support the proposal before us. I am going to apologise to Councillor Boggs because by no way am I teaching my granny how to suck eggs. If we want this motion to have any effect at all, I would suggest that we change it slightly to that we write to the Education Minister, because this council calling on the Education Minister, not one letter leaves Strand Road and goes to the department or goes to the Minister. And I think in terms of Councillor Gallagher's comments around tangible actions, that is at the very least one that we should be doing and including that in the body of the motion. But the SDLP are happy to support it as is and don't want to amend it to that small, minute fact, but I think it should be amended in that sense. But we think young people in Strabane deserve a purpose-built youth facility, and we think that the youth workers within Strabane, who are already doing a fantastic job, need the appropriate facilities to be able to enhance the lives of young people in that particular area. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tierney, and Councillor Boggs, are you content that it's changed to write a letter? Yeah, it's happy enough. I don't think we need to go through the whole amendment process for something as straightforward as that. Our next indicated speaker is Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Mayor. Totally agree with the emotion and with the motion, and I think the key words in there are purpose-built. Because I'm sure Councillor Boggs and others will agree that there is tremendous youth work going on in Strabane. It's the issue of facility for additional, particularly extracurricular type youth work ongoing. Many years ago, when I started teaching in the early 70s, I was youth club leader of Derrick Valley Youth Club. At that time, we were using the school facilities. There were youth clubs in Strabane because we engaged in competitions with the youth clubs that existed there. Eventually, through Derrick Valley Youth Club, we attained the purpose-built youth facility at the high school. And it has made a tremendous difference to the ongoing youth work and youth worker that is involved there. So it's only logical that to progress youth work in the way that it operates nowadays, purpose-built facility is necessary. One thing that I would have a concern with, writes to the Minister to secure funding from within his department's budget. I would say that's limiting, because he should be looking at funding wherever it's available from. And I mean, there are sources of funding we know that can be worked with the community, who would have access to various philanthropic funds, etc., to assist with developing this type of facility. So I don't know if Councillor Boggs would be minded to withdraw from, the limitation of just from within his department's budget, or perhaps department's budget and beyond, but certainly support the motion and would hope that we can utilise any methodology to get the facility there for the benefit of the young folk of the area. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey. Councillor Harkin.
Thank you, Mayor. And I support the motion, and I think it's a good proposal. Following Councillor Gallagher's comments, I think that there's a bit to add, and that's reinforced now by Councillor Tierney and Alderman Hussey's points. So I have a short amendment that I want to add that I've just sent to Teresa. And it gets to the point about writing to the executive and seeing this as a cross-cutting issue rather than solely the responsibility of one minister.
I need a seconder. Councillor Gallagher seconds it. Does anybody wish to speak to the amendment? Councillor Tierney, go ahead.
Just to indicate our support for the amendment, Chair, Mayor, sorry.
Councillor Gallagher.
Thank you for letting me back in again, Chair. Chair, I wholeheartedly agree with this. And it is a well-known fact, that there has been an underinvestment in the Strabane area for many, many years. Regardless of what certain politicians are saying around the Northwest is thriving, Strabane's not thriving. The youth sector in Strabane is not thriving. We need investment, and we need it in the Strabane, and the government needs to put it on there. And when we're talking earlier around, you know, like the minister's budget, why doesn't the finance minister give the money for this? Why didn't they provide capital for this? That's what we should be doing as a council, and it's across borders, writing to them all saying, you provide the money. Thank you.
Okay, members, the amendment has been proposed and seconded. Councillor Gallagher, you seconded the amendment. Are you content to support the amendment? Yeah, members, I'm seeking everybody's in agreement with the amendment. So that takes us back then to the substantial motion, which has been proposed and seconded. Does anybody else want to speak on the substantive motion? Councillor Gallagher, are you content to support the substantive motion now? You are. So then, members, I'm sensing that there's unanimous support for the motion. So we'll take that as passed. Councillor Boggs, sorry, we'll not take it as passed yet. Councillor Boggs has to be afforded the opportunity to sum up first.
Thank you very much, Mayor, and thank you to those who spoke positively about the initial proposal. I wish we all could have spoke positively about it, because I think it is better that we speak positive on these issues and the need for them rather than trying to score cheap political points. And I also want to address the issue in relation to commentary about mobs in Strabane Town. I agree with Councillor Gallagher on this. Those young people are young people. They're not a mob. And part of this motion is the point of giving them a purpose-built facility where there are diversionary tactics around maybe, you know, some of the stuff that we are seeing in Strabane, some of which is not acceptable, but it does not give anybody the right to call any young person or label them as part of a mob. So I don't necessarily agree that it is totally a cross-cutting issue, but I'm not going to dance over the head of a pin on it. We don't bring things to this chamber in relation to roads and try and blame the communities minister for it. We suck it up and we deal with it as an infrastructure issue. Similarly, I don't know why then a department and an arm's length body in the EA, which is under the responsibility of the Education Minister, all of a sudden becomes a bigger issue for the executive, but happy to write to all executive parties. And just to address the point in relation to just tell the Finance Minister to give more money, that would be a great situation to find ourselves in about the raft of issues that we talk about in this chamber and in Stormont, but it's not the case. And it reminds you sometimes of when we talk about rates in this place and everybody has a wish list and then doesn't support them. So there are capital pressures, but it's up to individual ministers to decide where they direct their funding. And this motion is asking for the Education Minister to direct it in Strabane's way for a youth centre. So I want to thank everybody who spoke in support of the motion and thank councillors for voting it through. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Boggs. That motion has now passed. So our third motion is Councillor Norris to move.
Thank you, Mayor, for bringing me in. I'll take the motion.
Seconder, Councillor Mooney.
I'll take the motion as read. I brought this motion on because recently there's been 3 times in my area this has happened. So it's great that DFI is starting to fix the roads within the rural areas, you know. So to give examples, our moor was done there recently. Any water was coming down a pipe across and the road had to be closed. Secondly, the Woodville Road in Eglinton, that was being tarred and the road had to be closed. And more recently, Tamnian Road had to be closed. And what happens is the DFI put forward a project, the outside contractor comes in, and the outside contractor puts these RAMs forward, which is risk assessment mission statement, and the DFI will say, well, that road needs to be closed for the period of time when they're doing the work. Then what happens is TransLink comes along and says, well, if it's closed, we can provide a service into that rural area at that time. And recently, that is what happened when the Tamnian Road was closed. They couldn't supply the 152 bus, and the 152 bus comes out of Derry and through Drumahoe and through Learsandoney and through Tamnian and through Eglinton and through Greysteel and on down Ballykillian and Lamavady. What TransLink said was they didn't have the budget. What they done was they transferred the bus down the Lamavady Road and through Eglinton on down to Lamavady. But that meant Learsandoney, Tamnian, all didn't have a service for that period of the 2 weeks that they closed the road. And this is happening in Ardmore. When it happened in Ardmore, I was able to fight the case and we got the bus reinstated. When the Woodville Road, I was able to fight the case, but this time TransLink is saying they don't have the budget. DFI aren't supplying them with the budget and they won't be supplying the buses going forward. Now, this just isn't for my rural area. This will be for all the rural councillors. This is going to happen, that the buses for into their areas are going to be cancelled. I honestly think it's just an oversight. I think it's an oversight by the project leads that if they just looked at the project and incorporated the extra £2,000 that it would cost to run an extra bus into that area, I think that is all what's needed in this, and that's what the motion is about. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Norris. I have Alderman Middleton indicated.
Thank you, Mayor, for letting me in, and also thank you, Councillor Norris, for bringing this vital motion forward today. The DUP are supportive of the motion and recognise the need for better rural transport links district-wide. As a rural representative and a rural dweller, I am acutely aware of the disparity that exists in rural versus urban public transport availability. Lack of routes, bus stops literally located in grass verges, and the poor proximity of bus stops to where our rural residents actually live creates for a very stressful time for our rural workers, students and persons accessing healthcare, or those just wishing to avail of a social life outside of their rural hamlet. Rural isolation, as well as a lack of regular timeframes, as I've touched on, if these are even available, create a very unfair imbalance for many of our rural dwellers. I acknowledge and concur with all of the points mentioned by Councillor Norris, specifically knowing the effect this has on our rural residents in the Faughan, particularly in Eglinton, Brady, Trench Road, but also elsewhere. I also acknowledge that this is a district-wide issue. Whilst road improvements are necessary and very, very much welcomed, communication with residents, thought for residents and actually free flow for residents must be prioritised. Our rural roads are much more widely used than some departments may believe. In fact, I would sometimes say, you know, we need a road more than an urban dweller to get to some of our essential appointments and places that we need to be. We must all work together to continue to represent our rural road users robustly when lobbying TransLink and DFI on their behalf. Budgets are important, but so is the free flow of our residents. So I look forward to seeing the outcomes of this motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alderman. Councillor Leonard.
I've read through this motion a few times and I'm still looking to see any mention of acknowledging or welcome the infrastructure work that is ongoing in rural areas. However, Councillor Norris has mentioned it in his remarks, and it is important that rural roads receive equitable attention and improvements. Any improvement in road infrastructure will improve road safety for citizens, and we have discussed this many times in this chamber. There's no doubt that roadworks can cause delays, road closures and inconvenience, and everyone in this room, I'm sure, has been impacted. But I also believe that it is our gift as civic leaders to do what we can to help citizens see the bigger picture, the end result, the safer roads. I do believe, as I'm sure others do, that the contents of this motion is an operational matter for TransLink, and I would be concerned that any additional costs that they would incur for alternative divisionary bus routes could impact negatively on the extent of the planned road improvements and the safety matters. However, notwithstanding what I've just said, there's no objection to this motion going forward. Where are my advocates?
Thank you, Councillor Leonard. Any other member wish to make a contribution on the motion? Okay, members, it's been proposed and seconded, and I'm sensing again there's unanimous support for the motion. Yeah. Would you like to sum up, Councillor?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to thank for everybody's comments, and just to clarify, I'm delighted the roads getting done. I think the Tamnairn Road was like a £375,000 project, but it's just only a mile of the road. I would like the bit coming out of Eglinton right up to the crossroads of Braga finished, and I would like the crossroads of Braga, the stage of that to be done as well. You know, so there's a lot to be done. But I do take your point. But like, I'm delighted with that. But at the same time, there's villages, there's wee areas, settlements being left out whenever the roads are being done. Like Lettershandoney wasn't being served through that whole 2 weeks. And unfortunately, TransLink could have put on a second bus. They're saying they can't because of budget. I believe whenever the project is being set out, that can be incorporated into the project. I do projects of work all the time. It needs to be done at the very beginning. If a PHA was done at the very beginning, all these things would be brought out on it. And I think it's just an oversight, but I think going forward is a chance for the Minister to look at this and say, no, we have to support the rural areas and the buses need to be put on during the time when the roads are closed. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Norris. Members will take that motion as passed unanimously. Moving on then to our next notice of motion, which is Councillor Duffy to move.
Come on, Mayor. Seconder.
Seconder, Councillor Jackson.
Thank you. Mayor, this motion is about fairness and about valuing the people who show up every day to help those society too often ignores. The health inclusion team within the Western Health and Social Care Trust does remarkable work. Every day they deliver compassionate, practical healthcare to people experiencing homelessness and others with complex needs, often reaching those who would otherwise be entirely excluded from the system. Their work is deeply humane and essential, but despite their dedication, the Western Trust Health Inclusion Team operates with limited resources and reach when compared to similar teams elsewhere. Our team here consists of a wonderful homeless nurse and podiatrist, and they make use of a mobile hub that is loaned to them once a week to go out onto our streets, providing vaccinations, sexual health checks, mental health care and addiction support. This is vital life-saving work, but when I think of the work that they do and the results that they get and how they treat vulnerable people with compassion and they provide them with the dignity where they see them. So if we had a better resource team with a doctor, a dentist, a dedicated addiction worker, a psychiatrist, just imagine the difference that we could actually make. This motion isn't about criticism, it's about recognition and fairness. We're asking the Minister for help to acknowledge the excellent work that is being done in the Western Trust and to explore the opportunities to expand and strengthen this service, because ultimately healthcare should be equitable no matter where you live, even if you don't have an address. People here deserve the same access to support, the same investment and the same care as everyone else.
We have heard much in recent weeks about issues within our city centre. This, in my view, is an important key aspect to addressing these issues. We have a multi-agency team in place, but we ultimately now need the resources. Public safety is important, but so is human dignity, and in my view, this helps us have both. So by supporting this motion, we can send a clear, united message that compassion, fairness and dignity must be extended to everyone, everywhere. Gurmaggat, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy, and I have Alderman Cook indicated to speak.
Thanks, Mayor, for letting me in, and thanks to Councillor Duffy for bringing this motion forward. On behalf of the DUP, we fully support this motion. The Health Inclusion Team does incredible work, and it's often quietly and without recognition. They support some of the most vulnerable people in our community, those who are homeless, battling addiction, struggling with mental ill health, and much more. But the reality is, the need is growing and the resources simply aren't enough. Right now, much of this service is centred here in Londonderry, yet the same issues do exist right across the Western Trust area as well. Additional funding would allow the Health Inclusion Team to expand its outreach, recruit more staff and strengthen its partnerships with housing providers, community groups and addiction services. It would mean more joined up care, more people supported and fewer ending up in crisis. When people are supported properly, they're less likely to end up in hospital, less likely to be on the streets and more likely to rebuild their lives. So thanks again, Councillor Duffy, for tabling this motion, and the DUP are fully supportive. So I look forward to hearing the responses. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Cook. Councillor Riley.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks to Councillor Duffy for tabling the motion here this afternoon, and the SDLP are in support of the two asks that it proposes. The key's in the name here, it's inclusion, meaning bringing together health services to the people that need it where they are. That keeps people from having to access more expensive crisis care in different settings. We recognise the strain that the Department of Health is under financially, and the widening of the work of the Health Inclusion Team can only help in reducing the impact that homelessness has on the public purse. Caring for every citizen, including them in healthcare planning, will ultimately both save the public purse and, more importantly, give those relying on the service the dignity and the detailed healthcare that they deserve. Since the provision of the service when it opened in 2023, there was 850 referrals in the first year, which shows the demand for this particular service in our Western Trust area. It illustrates how healthcare transformation can make a real difference to people's health and their health outcomes. And by breaking down barriers faced by people who are homeless in terms of accessing healthcare, those improvements that are happening in other places should be rolled out here in the Western Trust as well. So thanks to Councillor Duffy for tabling it, and the SDLP are fully supportive of the proposal on the screen. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Alderman Guy.
Thank you, Mayor. We in the Ulster Unionist Party welcome this motion and would like to thank Councillor Duffy for bringing it here today. We want to place on record our appreciation for the Western Health and Social Care Trust Health Inclusion Team for the work that often goes unseen, but absolutely vital. This is a team working directly with some of the most vulnerable individuals on our council area. People experience homelessness, addiction, mental health issues, trauma, and multiple complex needs. Many of these individuals are not easily reached by mainstream services. As councillors, we are all acutely aware that homelessness is not only a housing issue, but also a health issue. Through his emphasis on tackling health inequalities, including here in the city, has been clear that people experiencing homelessness have significantly worse physical and mental health outcomes than the general population. As a result, they are more likely to require hospital admission and longer-term care and support. I've been really impressed that the Health Inclusion Team has developed strong working partnerships with community organisations, hostels, GPs, addiction support services and outreach groups. However, the Trust has also acknowledged that the scale of need continues to grow while the team's capacity remains stretched. We know that in all our Trust areas, such as Belfast, specialist health inclusion services are operating with broader multidisciplinary staffing, including dedicated mental health clinicians, addiction specialists, and stronger GP liaison links. So we are asking the same team to do more, but within the same envelope of existing resources, whilst demand is only continuing to grow. So we support the call for the Council to write to the Minister of Health, firstly, to commend the dedication and impact of the health inclusion team, and secondly, to request that the Department works with the Trust to explore opportunities to further support the service. And also to let you know that the Minister has agreed that if the Trust or the inclusion team would like to invite him down here to the Northwest, then he would be happy enough to come and speak to them. Thanks to Councillor Donnelly for bringing this here forward today. Or sorry, Councillor Duffy. Apologies.
Okay. Thank you, Alderman Guy. Next indicated speaker is Councillor Harkin.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in, and thank you, Councillor Duffy, for bringing forward this very important motion today to support the health inclusion team, and People Before Profit extend our full support to the health inclusion team. They do tremendous work and they need to be fully supported and commended. And obviously, that's what this motion aims to do. Since the hub has been opened, it's been a massive success as judged by the number of deferrals. Unfortunately, we are in a situation, because we hear it again and again from those who work in addiction services, those who work in homelessness, those who work in housing, and those who work in health, that health inequalities means that the scale of need continues to grow and the pressures on workers continues to grow. So I think that this motion sets out to expand services, and we really need that. And look, anybody who is experiencing homelessness, anybody who is vulnerable, anybody who has complex needs has just as much right to healthcare and support as anyone else. And we should ensure that the means by which people can access that are fully available. And that's what this is about. So People Before Profit are very much happy to support this, to support the workers and to support those who the expanded resources will help and reach. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harkin. There are no other indicated speakers. Again, members, I'm sensing a unanimous support for the motion that has been proposed and seconded. Just to ask Councillor Duffy if she'd like to sum up.
Margaret, Mayor, and thank you to everyone for your support for this motion. To me, it is a really important one. A recent health inequality report showed that poor health and homelessness do go hand in hand, unfortunately, and people who are experiencing acute homelessness often live 30 years less than the general population. So on average, that is homeless men and women dying in their 40s. So I think that that demonstrates to me the absolute need for this service. And that report was a local report in relation to the north. So I think across the city, we do see so many young people at the minute, and some not so young, who are really, really vulnerable due to homelessness, due to mental health, due to addictions. And getting access to mainstream services, getting an understanding from a GP or getting an understanding from a busy A&E department can present their own difficulties and their own issues, and sometimes just getting that help there and then when they need it is near on impossible. So that is why this team is absolutely so important. I do really welcome, Darren, what you're saying around the Minister, and I will pass that on to the team, because I know that they're really, really keen. They're very, very passionate about what they do, and rightly so, because it is a very, very difficult job that they're doing. But anything that we can do to try and enhance that service for them and give them a bit of ease as well, I think we should be doing it. So I will certainly pass that on. Mayor, and just an added thing. It would be good if you could recognise the health inclusion team from the Western Trust as well. They're a very small team doing absolutely powerful work. So on that note, thank you very much.
Councillor Jackson, you looking on?
But just after, I'm assuming, Councillor Duffy's summed up, and I'm not looking to speak on the motion, just to declare an interest as an employee of the Western Trust, and can I extend that interest to the next motion? Thanks, Mayor.
Will Councillor Jackson declare an interest on that motion and the next motion? And the next motion, sorry, that motion then is passed, so that brings us to our next motion by Councillor Harkin.
Thank you, Mayor. Can I take the motion as read?
Yeah, and seconded by Councillor McDade.
Thank you, Councillor McDade. We know how vital our health and social care workers are. And they've been on the picket lines many times in recent years in their fight for fair pay and their fight for pay parity. And it's very unfortunate that pay parity has once again been broken, which means that they are not paid the same as their colleagues or counterparts in England and Scotland and Wales. And pay parity is not a massive increase, it's the bare minimum. This year, it would account for a 3.6% pay increase, and inflation is above 4%. So it's not even enough. So it's the basics. And so my experience right now in talking to health and social care workers at Altnagalvin and elsewhere, but also to talking to trade union representatives, is one of complete anger. People are furious that they are dealing with this issue again. And the other thing that is frustrating people is that we keep getting these announcements that the problem has been resolved, that the money has been found, and then we see a couple of hours later or a day later or a week later that the money has not yet been found for certain and that the issue has not been resolved. So we're in a situation right now where there's still uncertainty, and the trade unions as a united body right across, Unite, Unison, GMB, NIPSA, CSP and others are all prepared to take strike action. And they're not talking about one day, they're talking about 3 days of strike action over a weekend, which would mean 5 days of action. And I think that this is to send a very clear message that this breaking of pay parity on a regular basis is just not acceptable. So I think that we need to stand in solidarity with our health and social care workers, demand that the executive resolve this, pay them the bare minimum, to avoid a strike, and to also make sure that there's no break in service access for the thousands and tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people across the north that depend on it. One of the things that people are frustrated about is that they believe that people can't hear them. And that's why I think we should invite them into the chamber in November to actually allow them to speak directly to us so that they know that we are actually listening. We can hear what they're saying, we can feel their anger, and we actually hear their solutions to this crisis, which involves paying them properly, but also tackling privatisation, which is sucking hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds out of the health service every year. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harkin. Councillor McDade, are you looking to speak?
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks, Councillor Harkin, for tabling the motion. I think across this chamber we've always stood in solidarity with our public sector workers, and within the SLP we will certainly be supporting this motion. We know that healthcare workers are the backbone of society here, and it seems like it's a never-ending cycle. It's just every year it's like you get a wee tidbit of kind of hope that maybe we're going to get pay parity halfway into the year, and then once we kind of get to the end of the year, you're behind again. So it's never ending. So I do think we need to do everything we can. Totally agree with the healthcare workers going out and strike. I'll be standing with them, and it would be great to have them in here to present this too, just to hear, because I obviously was a healthcare worker up until last year, and I know it's not just about the money, it's about the kind of understanding what people are being put through. So people are having to work under harder and harder, more strange conditions with more complex cases coming through and then getting paid less for it. So it's more than just money, it's everything. So I think I welcome the fact that Councillor Harkin is inviting them in here to speak to us as well. So no, thanks Sean for tabling it, and we'll be supporting.
Thank you, councillor McDade. Councillor O'Farrell.
Roma agad a vera as cancha hortu, but while I'm here, can Sinn Féin land hackeo a hort on Rinshaw. Thank you, Councillor Harkin, for bringing this motion forward. Sinn Féin fully supports our health workers and strongly values their worth. We support this motion in total. It is disappointing that pay disparity exists. Health workers in England, Scotland and Wales are much better off than our workers. It shouldn't be the case, but like it or not, we are second-class citizens here. There is a huge funding shortfall across all our departments. The underfunding means long waiting lists, inadequate services and poor support for vulnerable people. A poor service, in short. Our health workers are not to blame, and that should be emphasised. Westminster is to blame, folks, for the underfunding. Partition sucks, and that is not just a slogan. That is the reality. What we need is an all-Ireland health service. We have nothing but praise for our health workers and will fully support any strikes. Glad to support the motion. Gur a míle maith agad.
And councillor Rory Farrell.
I'm actually fine, Mayor. Catherine spoke on behalf of us. But I'm just going to reflect on this very, very briefly, just in response to Councillor O'Farrell. We can blame Westminster for a lot of things, but Westminster funds the health service in England. It funds the devolved administrations in Scotland and Wales, and they have implemented pay parity. Scotland have implemented a higher pay rise than England and Wales. So just reflect on that.
Okay, and Alderman Kerrigan.
Thank you very much, Mayor, for letting me in. And Mayor, we're content to support the motion brought forward by Councillor Harkin. I have no difficulty with calling for the pay parity to be brought back into line, as has been stated in there. I do note the privatisation issue, which Councillor Harkin refers to there as well. But and I do know there's issues in that regard, and I know there's issues when you speak to staff in that regard as well. But I do know a number of individuals across West Tyrone who were able to avail of works effectively that were subbed out to others to get knees done and various bits and pieces of work done to themselves there, which we're very grateful of. But again, it was a cost through the NHS, and having spent a bit of time in both Omagh and the SWA very recently there, and very appropriate that we had the leaflet in regard to save our acute services there in Enniskillen, because say on the lower end of the council, as you know yourself, Mayor, you know, the SWA would be the hospital for one side of Castlereagh. It wouldn't be Altnagalvin would be their first choice. And having spoken to the nursing staff, they do have a particular issue in regard to agency staff and the way that is brought in, and the rate and the cost that incurs as well. So there are those elements there, but no difficulty in regards to supporting the motion brought forward and for calling for pay parity to be restored, and welcome a meeting for a special council meeting, as Councillor Hicks put forward, that the workers can come and speak to us. So content with the motion. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Kerrigan. Alderman Guy.
Thank you, Mayor. We fully support this too as well in the Ulster Unionist Party. The debate goes to the heart of how we value people who hold our health service. That's always a bad time when somebody phones you in the middle of it. So, so value the people who hold our health service together. And it is important that we say at the outset, this is not simply about salary. It is about respect, fairness, and giving people what they're owed. Across our hospitals, clinics, care homes, and communities, all healthcare staff are doing extraordinary work, often under relentless pressure. They do so not for praise or applause, but because they believe in caring for people at their most vulnerable moments. When the executive returned in January 2020, Robin Swan's first priority was delivering upon a new pay deal. Working with the unions, he succeeded, and all political parties publicly signed up to the commitment on not just delivering pay parity, but maintaining it. Sadly, when some of those same political parties later collapsed the executive, they also robbed that certainty from our workers. And so that's how we found ourselves once again in the wholly intolerable position in 2024 of parity not being maintained. And whilst a deal was reached to restore parity again, we find ourselves in the position that health staff here in Northern Ireland continue to wait for a pay settlement that their colleagues in other parts of the UK have already received. And I think you need to be honest about what it means. It means staff feeling undervalued and frankly disrespected. The previous promises of pay parity were meant to give certainty. It was meant to demonstrate that no health worker would be left behind by the executive. But here we are again, having the same conversations we have had too many times before. Some of us in this chamber know what it means to work on the front line. Some of us have family members who do that on an everyday basis. No one in this room wants to see industrial action, but we also cannot pretend that the frustration being expressed is not real or justified. When staff feel they have exhausted every other route of being heard, that is when they are pushed into taking action they would rather avoid. And the consequences of continued delay will not be numbers on a spreadsheet. It will be cancelled appointments, longer waiting lists, and real people suffering. The Health Minister has spent months pleading with the Executive to listen and to improve his request to deliver the 2025-26 pay award. Yet only in recent weeks have the other ministers been prepared to take action. And whilst I don't dismiss at all the contribution of 100 million, it's only half of what the Minister needs. And remember, the Minister is already facing a major shortfall in existing funding. So it's not, I'll finish up now, sir. If it was forced to make a further 100 million in cuts, where do they come from? We do support this because nobody wants to see our healthcare workers have to plead and bargain for money. So let's get the pay health workers deserve. Thank you.
Alderman Guy. Councillor Harkin, would you like to sum up? No. Members, I'm sensing again that there's unanimous support for the motion. Nobody dissenting, so take that motion as passed. And that brings us to our final motion of the meeting, and that's Councillor Harkin to move again.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm very eager we get out of here for 6, if possible. Can I assume, that where it says rights to, that means that we would write to the ministers, or do I need to do an amendment?
Yeah, just to be a second there.
I think it says calls. Does that need to be changed to rights to? It's clear it's going to the executive ministers.
So if the motion says calls for, no action is taken on foot of that. If a letter is to be written, the motion must specifically state rights and must say to whom they wish the letter to be written to.
So with members' agreement and the mayor's agreement, can I ask that that be changed to rights to the relevant ministers?
Yeah, we'll get that changed, Councillor Harkin.
To storm at the executive ministers. Yeah.
Sorry, Philip, could you just clarify that there for members? Yeah, members, as previously with Councillor Boggs' motion, are members content with that change with Councillor Harkin's motion? Yeah, so we're happy enough to move on. Be a seconder for your motion, Councillor Donnelly. Go ahead, Councillor Harkin.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I think it's very obvious that transgender people are being demonised in our society. We have a campaign being led out of the White House by Trump to essentially sign executive orders erasing the existence of trans people. It is being supported by billionaires like Elon Musk, and it has spread out internationally. We see the British High Court taking positions that add to the demonisation of transgender people. We also see, unfortunately, the Stormont executive passing a number of issues over the last couple of years that adds to the fear-mongering, but also makes life much more difficult for transgender people. And there's a few things I want to say about transgender people. You would imagine, given the amount of discussion in our mainstream press, particularly or papers like the Daily Mail, who have hit jobs regularly about transgender people, that there must be lots and lots of transgender people. Well, across these islands, in England, in the north, and Britain, the transgender population is less than 0.5%. So we're talking about a very small number of people who are regularly discussed and not in a positive way. And that is leading to direct attacks. People may have heard in Cork, 2 drag queens were attacked in the open by thugs simply for being drag queens and beaten up. And this happens on a regular basis. And this is being fueled by the political right. We hear, unfortunately, DUP again and TUV representatives talking negatively about transgender people and letting people think that they pose some sort of great danger to the vast majority of people in society. And this doesn't hold up in any statistic, doesn't hold up in any study. And they're again scapegoating the wrong group of people in order to deflect away from the failures of government. So I think it's incumbent of us as a council that stands for inclusivity, that stands for solidarity with people from all backgrounds, all sexual orientations, that we take a firm stand against the hypocrisy that transgender people face. And that means, one, properly marking the Transgender Day of Remembrance, which unfortunately comes out of a global attempt to mark the number of people who were murdered year on year simply for being transgender. So that's what that is for. I think we should mark it and work with Foyle Pride, work with the Rainbow Project, work with the LGBTQ plus working group that we set up here in the council to make sure that happens properly. And also to raise awareness, because that's one thing that people often talk about. There's just not enough awareness. I think we should also call on the executive ministers to really give consideration to reversing all these decisions, the CAS-led review of gender identity services, the permanent ban on puberty blockers, and most importantly, the most recent one, which is the withdrawal of guidance for transgender students in schools, which is leading directly to a huge impact on people's mental health, which is not good. So I'll finish there, Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Harkin. Councillor Duffy.
Trans people are our friends, they're our family, and they're our neighbours. They're part of our workplaces, our schools, and our communities, and they deserve to live freely, safely, and with dignity. Standing up for trans rights isn't about special treatment, it's about equal treatment. It's about fairness, compassion, and the right to be yourself without fear or shame. Too often, trans people are targeted, ridiculed, or made political pawns. We can't let that happen. Our job as a decent democratic society is to stand with people when they're being pushed down. Trans rights are human rights. Saying that shouldn't be brave, it should be just basic. And as long as I have a voice, I'll use it to say this. No one loses anything by showing kindness and respect. This council has always prided itself on standing for inclusion, equality and respect. But in recent months, we have seen an alarming rise in political scapegoating of transgender people. People who already face more than their fair share of misunderstanding, discrimination and hate. And let's be clear, when politicians and commentators single out a minority group to score cheap points, they do real harm. It's not leadership, it's cruelty dressed up as politics, and that is true no matter what angle you come from. Using a vulnerable group who don't want to be politicised is absolutely wrong. I have proposed an amendment which, in my view, should allow everyone in this chamber to show their support, an amendment that will allow this motion to be unanimously adopted and for us to send a strong message to the trans community. Transgender people deserve safety, dignity and respect, the same as anyone else in our community. That's why this motion matters. By committing to work with Foyle Pride, the Rainbow Project, the LGBTQ+ working group and others to mark Transgender Day of Remembrance on November 20th, we're saying this council sees you, values you and stands with you. It's a simple message, but in times like this, it's a powerful one. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. You proposed an amendment. Have you a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Hutton. Okay, members, the tabled amendment has been highlighted on the screen for you. Councillor Harkin.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, a lot of what Councillor Duffy said I agreed with, but I do question taking this much out of the motion, and so I would ask for legal advice from council. Is this okay to do? Because in my opinion, it drastically changes the nature of the motion.
So Mayor, as you know, we've discussed at the training that we've done in relation to notices of motion that when we're looking at amendments, as an amendment can't be a direct negative, what we tend to look at is the actions which flow from the motion. In relation to this motion, other than broad support for transgender people, the action, the operative action is really the various issues in relation to the Stormont Executive, which are in fact the parts that are shown as struck out in the notice of motion at the moment. Mayor, probably is the case that this is a situation where the motion, the amendment would fall within the category of being a direct negative of the motion and consequently would go beyond what would be acceptable under standing orders.
Okay, members, legal advice has been sought there and delivered. On that basis, I'm going to rule that the amendment is not acceptable.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Philip. I am unhappy with the legal opinion, but I have had those conversations offline with you, Philip, for the very reason of not wanting to cause hurt or division within this room. We have clearly laid out Sinn Féin's position. Unfortunately, the wording of the motion as it stands now, without being amended, Sinn Féin cannot support. And I regret any hurt that this may cause.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. So the amendment hasn't been accepted, which leaves us with the original motion. Is there any other member who wishes to make a contribution? Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's important to be clear from the outset. Exist. They're a vulnerable and marginalised group in our community, and it is incumbent on all of us to do everything in our power to make sure that they are safe, valued and supported to live freely. I think that begins by measuring the language that we as public representatives use and by reflecting the impact that the words said on here can have on people who have already been made feel unwelcome and unsafe outside these walls. The statistics and the lived experiences of trans people are indisputable. There has been a 10% increase in transgender hate crime. More and more people are telling us that they don't feel safe and that they've been a victim of hate crime in the past 12 months. That is, I think, undeniably linked to the public debate that has become toxic and polarised, where the interests of people have taken a back seat to winning a culture war arguments that don't serve the needs of anyone in our community. There are, of course, a diverse range of views on some of the individual decisions taken by the executive over the last year, and I think that they will probably be reflected in the opinions here tonight. This issue, like other issues that we have discussed previously in this chamber, is forcing debates within families and friend groups, within lobby groups and within political parties. I know that it has caused debate within our own group on this council. There will be some SDLP councillors this evening who will abstain in the view of their own personal matters around the executive policy. There are also SDLP councillors who will support the motion as tabled in line with their own values on this issue. As a group, we are clear that any hate, intimidation or intolerance of trans people is totally unacceptable. And as a group, we are appalled by the unacceptable rise in transphobic hate and the particular failure of the Justice Minister to bring forward the reforms in hate crime legislation recommended over 5 years ago. I would also like to reflect the position of our party leader, Claire Hanna, who has recently said that the SDLP would not have backed a ban on puberty blockers, pardon me, given the information that we have, and she has questioned why the medical and scientific advice to the executive before they took these decisions has not been made public. The culture of secrecy does not help us address the experiences of trans people. This is an important issue, and the failure of the executive to address concerns of trans people or to meaningfully change hate crime legislation is deeply disappointing. And I hope that parties here will reflect that to the ministers and that we will see a change in tone, tact and action from the executive. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tierney. Alderman Kerrigan.
Thank you very much, Mayor, for allowing me in. A lot of it stems down to, as stated there, is treating people the way you'd like to be treated. And I can have a difference of opinions with many in this chamber, but as I say, I still like to be courteous to people. And in the same token, Mayor, as I'm sure many of the elected representatives, you know, when someone comes to your door, you're not asking them what they are or this, that or the other. You're trying to do work for them and do the best you can for them. So it's that treating people how you would like to be treated. In regards to the motion as is brought forward, Mayor, the executive parties supported the ban on puberty blockers, and in regards to it was the Education Minister removed the advice there, as has been noted there as well. So just clarification, Mayor, that we won't be supporting the motion as it stands. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alderman Kerrigan. Councillor McDade.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Harkin for bringing the motion. There's been a number of decisions taken by the executive that are having devastating impact on trans people here in the north. The decisions have a huge impact on a small number of already vulnerable people, and we need to show compassion for them, like it's been spoken about already, and do whatever we can to make sure we don't add to the fear and isolation that people face. So if I break down the motion, the first part about the permanent ban of puberty blockers and the cash review, nobody wants medication to be handed out willy-nilly or in a casual way, and I don't think any medical professional will do this. Trans people already wait up to 7 years for healthcare, and adding this additional hurdle is adding to what's already a very discriminatory health service for trans people. These decisions need to be made and led by medical evidence, not made by politicians. But what the politicians and the executive could and should be doing is publishing a health strategy for trans people so that people here can access the care and support that they need when they need it. As for the school guidance for trans students, again, this impacts a small number of people, but has had a massive negative effect on them. I listened intently to the Education Minister talk about this when it was announced, and he didn't really seem to know where he sat. He avoided questions and has kind of left teachers in a very grey area. The guidance for school staff and pupils created an inclusive and safe environment for young people to get an education and mix with their peers. But by removing the guidance, it's made it impossible for some students to attend school due to severe anxiety and fear. So I would ask the Minister, what harm was the guidance doing in the first place, and why did he have to remove it? Because it's causing harm now. The world that we live in is already a scary place, but it's even more so for marginalised groups, including transgender people. And by pushing through these decisions in the executive, it's added to the fear and isolation that people face. We need to do everything we can to ensure our trans siblings feel safe, protected and supported. And I'm happy to continue to work with Foyle Pride, with the Rainbow Project and with any other groups that would come in and support us to do this. And I'll certainly attend and promote the Day of Remembrance also. So people across this chamber often talk about inclusivity and working with everyone. And to me, this motion is an opportunity for us to stand in solidarity with our trans siblings. So thank you again for the motion, and I will be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McDade. I have Councillor Cusack online.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, I agree with the bulk of the motion, and I would have supported the amendment. Trans people should be free to be themselves and express their sexuality and identity with no threat to others. We all know being different is a wonderful gift. It should not be seen as dangerous or deviant, and trans people should be celebrated. I do, however, have personal concerns regarding puberty blockers and their use for people at such a young age. And it's for that reason and that reason only that I'll be abstaining on the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cusack. Councillor Mooney.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for bringing me in. Just my first thought is to just acknowledge what everyone else has said already about the sensitivity of the issue. It's extremely important, and I mean, what I would first and foremost say that those kids, those children and adults who are going through any process of gender dysphoria deserve our love and attention like any other member of society. But I've been looking at this, and I suppose if you ask my wife, she would say I might have developed an unhealthy interest in this sort of stuff, because I've been reading it since last year, since CAS was published. And there was a precursor to CAS, it was the NICE report, which was around 2020. But I've sort of looked at this now through the prism of a public health issue, and that's really what it is. And I do take issue with the second paragraph, especially when it says deep disappointment of transphobic decisions that have come from Stormont executive ministers. Because I would say the bulk of those ministers wouldn't have actually looked at that through the prism of a transphobic idea or notion. That's the first. So, I mean, I wouldn't see anybody sitting on that table going and looking through those medical reports and all that information and then looking through it in any other way than just as a responsible executive minister would do. I really don't see it that way. I looked at it through that point of a public health decision, and I wasn't too sure which decision, which Councillor Hargan expressed that he had about a British High Court decision, but if it's the one that came out after CAS in July 24, I've read that, and it's the Transactional CIC, the SOS for Health and the Minister for Health here, and it's a long document, but it went to 70 pages, and the High Court judge who decided on the case read extensively into CAS and all around the ancillary documents in relation to that. But interestingly, what I found right through the 70 pages was at no stage of that case, just 2 seconds, please, did the plaintiff at any time plead any issue of transphobia about the decision from CAS and the ministers taking that decision, which to me was very, very, very acute and very, very important, because if there was anything, they would have pleaded that. And today I haven't heard Councillor Hargan actually explain to me about any transphobia affecting the decisions that have come to date. And since that decision, no appeal was lodged by those plaintiffs. And that's now October 2025. Just bear with me, just 2 seconds, Chair. And that's the problem I have. And my mind was going, do I go against this decision or do I abstain? But I will be abstaining, because what I fully agree with is the last paragraph, where Council will work with all those organisations. That's so important, because this is a minority grouping within our society. And I approach this from the view that we have to look after it for everybody in our society, and I would never want to go against that. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Mooney. Members, no further indicated speakers. Sorry, Councillor Farrell.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks to Councillor Harkin for the proposal. I'm going to abstain on this, but I just want to state publicly why. I agree with the vast majority of this, but where I have a problem is that the motion is asking us for the findings of the CAS-led review into gender identity services be reversed. And I cannot, with good conscience, support that. It was a comprehensive report. It was conducted by a really, really respected academic. It's been supported by the Royal College of GPs. It's been supported by the Royal College of Psychiatrists. It's been supported by the Royal College of Paediatrics and Child Health. I have no clinical expertise. I am not medically qualified, so I'm in no position to say that their decision and their judgment is wrong. So I'm going to abstain.
Thank you, Councillor Farrell and Councillor Donnelly.
Chair, and I'd like to thank Councillor Harkin for bringing this motion here today, and I'd like to send solidarity to our trans community. And you know, I'm glad the amendment didn't go, because I think it's not enough the pay lip service. And I also want to put on record my abhorrence and the rise, and it's a very significant rise in hatred towards the trans community.
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly. Councillor Hutton.
Thank you, Chair. And I just wanted to make the point that today, with this motion coming to the floor, we had a great opportunity to send our full support and solidarity to the trans community. But unfortunately, due to the divisiveness of this motion, it's completely the opposite what we're doing now.
Alderman Guy.
Mayor, thanks for letting me come in. Just a short part. I like everybody else, I've listened to the debate in here, and I do feel that the best thing for us as a party to do as well is abstain. You know, obviously we were one of those parties that backed the permanent puberty blocker ban. I understand why Councillor Duffy decided to put in that amendment, and it was the save face of this count. Not so much a save face, but it's a very emotive motion. It steps in that lines of abortion, and we all know how emotive that can become in this council chamber. So I feel that the best way to approach this, because we know we would all like answers. We don't hate anybody in this room. We basically want everybody to live a peaceful life. You know, hate is wrong wherever, and these people deserve to basically live a life free from any obstructions, free from any hate. But the thing is, people have different opinions and things like that, and that's what it boils down to. And probably the best thing was to let Councillor Duffy's amendment go, and it would have basically took the sting out of it, because we can only talk about it at this level. We don't make the decisions. And right across the political parties here, everybody has had that same debate within their political parties, both locally and right across their party. So I think, you know, we'll be abstaining anyway, but it doesn't mean that we don't support people of the LGBTQ community. My own daughter is gay. I wouldn't have her any other way. And you know what, I fully support them. So I turned up to things when I was deputy mayor and all that. I had no bother turning up and supporting them. So I'll just leave it at that there, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Guy. Councillor Riley.
Yep, Mayor, thanks for bringing me in, and thanks to Councillor Harkin for tabling the motion. I was conscious when the amendment came forward, it did strike me as taking away all the actions of the motion as it originally had been put in, other than giving support to the foil pride and the trans community here in the city in terms of a verbal update or a verbal support. It didn't have any actions. And I'm conscious that when I spoke earlier this evening in relation to the other motion that was on the agenda, the word I used at that stage was inclusion. And I think that that's why this particular motion, we need to, I certainly from my point of view want to continue with that view of inclusion. That's why I'll be voting in support of the motion here this evening, because it does ask for the Stormont ministers, the government, to look at reversing the decisions, because as our party leader has said, there has been issues in relation to attacks on trans people, and this process has given those people the concerns about their safety. And it is important that we do mark Transgender Day of Remembrance in November. I've been at those events in previous years, and I know how the people who come to that event appreciate the attendance and the time of elected members and others who do that, because on other occasions, the likes of when Foyle Pride is on in the city, there are huge numbers of people out on the street supporting and endorsing the work of Foyle Pride. But when it comes to Transgender Day of Remembrance in November, the numbers are a lot smaller, and the transgender community do feel forgotten about, is certainly what they have told me on previous occasions. So I think that it is right that Councillor Harkin has brought this motion so that here this evening we're able to talk about these issues. And I do think that the Department of Health and the other executive ministers need to be more clear with the public in relation to the evidence that they're using to make these decisions. That certainly is what
Councillor.
that's certainly what our party has asked for in relation to getting the information into the public domain. So with that in mind, that I'm happy to support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. No other further indicated speakers, members. Given the fact there's so many views, even within parties and intent what way to vote, I'm going to ask for a vote to be taken. Before we do that, Councillor Harkin.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to sum up, look, it's undoubted that there is a massive increase in transphobia. Councillor Tierney talked about a rise in hate crimes against trans people. That's happening here in our city. It's happening in our district. And the media has been playing a role, but also government, by then making decisions that increase the pressure on the transgender community and undermine their rights. So this motion is not divisive. I spoke to people who work for Rainbow Project, for Foyle Pride. I talked to families who have received a letter telling them they have to come into the school now because of what Paul Given has sent out. They wanted these issues included in the motion. They said, don't be passing some tokenistic motion where people pretend to be standing in solidarity with us, but are actually backing things that are hurting us and hurting transgender kids. And that's what's happening. So that's why it's in there. Because you know what? In the first version of the motion that I wrote up, it wasn't in there. And I was told, made it very clear that this is not an acceptable way to show your solidarity. So in terms of how I'm looking at this from the point of view of transgender people who are being absolutely hammered right now. And there are DUP ministers who are going out of their way to be transphobic on the television, on the radio, and to put the boot in. Not everybody's doing that, thankfully, but these decisions that Stormont has made actually, unfortunately, lean in. So it's not divisive when this is coming from the LGBTQ community itself. So it's unfair to say I'm the one that's being divisive. You have to stand in solidarity with people when it's unpopular. That's what we're doing here. I stand with the oppressed, whether it's migrants or Palestinians, and that's what we should be doing as a council.
Thank you, Councillor Harkin. I'm going to put it to the vote now.
Okay, thank you,
Executive
Mayor. Alderman Cook.
Against.
Alderman Guy.
Abstain.
Alderman Hussey. Alderman Kerrigan.
Against.
Alderman McMorris.
Against.
Alderman Middleton.
Against.
Alderman Montgomery.
Abstain.
Councillor Jason Barr.
Abstain.
Councillor Lillian Barr.
For.
Councillor Raymond Barr,
For.
Councillor Boggs,
Neil.
Councillor Boyle,
I'm for.
Councillor Clark, Councillor Cusick,
Abstain.
Councillor Devine,
Neil.
Councillor Donnelly,
For.
Councillor Sandra Duffy,
Neil.
Councillor Farrell,
Abstain.
Councillor Fleming,
Neil.
Councillor Gallagher, Councillor Harkin, Councillor Heaney,
Neil.
Councillor Hutton,
Neil.
Councillor Jackson,
Neil.
Councillor Leonard,
Neil.
Councillor Logue,
Against.
Councillor McDade,
For.
Councillor McGinley,
Neil.
Councillor McHugh,
Neil.
Councillor Mooney,
Abstain.
Councillor Murphy,
Neil.
Councillor Norris, Councillor O'Farrell,
Neil.
Councillor Riley,
For.
Councillor Tierney, Councillor Neelis.
Neil.
Thank you, members. Just give me a moment, please. Mayor, I've recorded 19 against, 7 for, and 9 abstentions. So the notice of motion does not pass.
Okay, members, so that concludes the motions. Item 14 is the sealing list for October 5. If any member wishes to raise anything. Items 15 to 18, or sorry, 15 to 17 are open for information. Councillor Guy.
Item 15.
Item 15, go ahead.
We in the Ulster Unionist Party acknowledge the Equality Commission's finding regarding the Council's non-compliance with obligations outlined in chapters 1, 3, 4 and 5 of its equality scheme. Previously, I had raised concerns over the manner in which the relevant paper was presented to members, specifically noting repeated references to the Apprentice Boys of Derry. For clarity, my original statement specified that the Apprentice Boys of Derry is not involved in the regulation of trading stalls or merchandise. Rather, this responsibility falls exclusively to council licensed officers. With live streamed access to chamber proceedings, the public will continue to scrutinise council decisions and actions. It remains their prerogative to report any perceived misconduct to the Equality Commission whenever appropriate. So I want to ask a few things here. It wasn't me that went to the Equality Commission, by the way, just the way it was. But in light of these recent developments, have officers issued an apology to the Apprentice Boys? And has there been training set aside for all councillors now and officers and going forward? And when will that take place? And do you want me to go on to the next one, or do you just want to answer that one first? Or right, so go on. So and now, whilst we're on this, regarding trading stalls, a recent fundraising event held in the main hall next door for Palestine children and their families, which I have no issues with, as long as the funds reached get to those people in most need. But nonetheless, I wish to address why the council's current no flag policy was in operation when Palestinian flags were permitted for sale within the venue. And additionally, while I have no objection to the sale of merchandise when conducted properly, the manner in which green, white and orange balaclavas were sold did not meet suitable standards under our criterion 8, which suggests that merchandise that promotes, supports or glorifies hate crime or contravenes Council's Section 75 duties, which require Council to have regard to the desirability of promoting good relations between persons of different religious belief, political opinion or racial group. I think that we can all probably agree that really selling balaclavas in this building no matter what colour they are, isn't a good practice. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Guy. I'll ask the appropriate officer to respond to several queries you have there.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm going to provide an answer to the first two questions, and I'm going to call on colleagues to correct me if I'm incorrect. We have issued, and we had from the outset issued an apology to the complainant. Now, I think your question was specifically, had we issued an apology to the Apprentice Boys? As an organisation, we have not, but to the complainant who was writing, I think, on behalf of the Apprentice Boys. We have issued an apology, so I don't want to be corrected on a technicality there. We will issue an apology to the Apprentice Boys. In terms of training, as the report has said, additional training is being organised. Does that answer your two questions, Alderman Guy? Yep. With regard to the other issues you raised, particularly specifically the issue in the main hall, I don't have enough information today to answer that. We will take it away and come back to you.
Or just to declare an interest as a member of the Apprentice Boys.
Okay. Alderman Middleton.
Thank you, Mayor, for letting me in. The DUP concur with Alderman Guy's comments and questions on this report, as well as the need for clarity around the sale of flags and such items as outlined by Alderman Guy. Our policies need to apply to all. We welcome the apology to the complainant and ask that an urgent apology be offered to the Apprentice Boys. We also eagerly await and welcome training. It is of great importance that lessons are learnt as a result of this investigative outcome. This council must now carry out a thorough implementation of each of the recommendations given. We must furthermore ensure that decisions are not rushed moving forward without due diligence, proper engagement and screening. Thank you.
Okay, members. Item 16 is the responses to motions.
Mayor, if I could, just on the response from the Secretary of State for the North, I just want to put in record my disappointment that he has explicitly stated within that letter that the right to vote at 16 and 17 will not be in place for the 2027 round of local and assembly elections here. I think it's really, really disappointing given that that franchise has already been extended to 16 and 17-year-olds in Scotland and Wales, and it just highlights a further failure of devolution for the North.
Thank you, Councillor McGinley. Item 17 is resolutions from other councils. And item 18 is AOB. Okay, members, that concludes our full council meeting. Thank you for your attendance, and get out there and enjoy Halloween this evening, because you'll not enjoy it tomorrow.